I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Geno TV and Channel 99. Our guest today is Scott Leonard. Welcome, Scott.
Dan, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You're here, you've been involved in the Marine Mammal Rescue Team here for quite a while, have you not?
Yeah, I started as a volunteer in 1998 and was involved on and off with the rescue team until 2013. I also was involved with the Nantucket Marine Mammal Conservation Program constantly throughout that period, and took that program over in 2008, 2009. We're now trying to reform a rescue team, and we have a stranding agreement currently sitting with NOAA National Marine Fisheries Service, and I'll hear by the end of the year, I'm told, whether or not we meet their criteria and have a team.
What are sort of the basic things you have to tell them you're able to do?
Well, there's basic training that everybody has to go through. That's the easy part. There are some bells and whistles and hoops that you have to jump through. It's the federal government, it's federal law that this is all based on. And one thing that we lack out here is a lot of ocean scientists. We have some great scientists out here, and we have people working in the harbor, but we don't have people with letters after their name that are actually doing marine biology work. And we don't have a facility. New England Aquarium, who held the stranding agreement here for 33 years, of course, had New England Aquarium to go to if you had an animal that was in trouble. But we're cobbling together a good response. We've got our head vet up at the animal hospital, Steve St. Pierre. He's on board. His necropsy facility up there will be able to be used, and this is all part of the stranding agreement as we've put it together. And we have a lot of really good volunteers out here over the years that gained a lot of experience, and so I'm hoping that we'll get a positive feedback.
Good. We have another project.
Yes, we have another project.
What's the other project?
The other project, and I should reiterate that while I was involved with the Nantucket Marine Mammal Conservation Program for so long, earlier this year we formed our own 501c3, which is Marine
Another
Mammal.
one on Nantucket.
Another one, yeah. What was that, 150? Marine Mammal Alliance Nantucket. There are no other marine mammal groups out here, so we're kind of in a field of our own. And Nantucket being Nantucket, it's got both a history and a contemporary connection to marine mammals: whales, porpoise, dolphin, and seals. So that's very important on this island. So Marine Mammal Alliance Nantucket has come on board to try and take all of this on. We'll take over the outreach and policy stuff that Nantucket Marine Mammal Conservation Program did.
Has that sort of died away, or is it?
Nope, it's just a branch of what we are.
Okay.
Yeah, so I go to schools, and Jean Rios still does her street whale stations every summer. We'll bring out inflatable whales, and hopefully be in conjunction with the Mariah Mitchell Association and doing some life-size inflatable whale stuff. And then
but you don't harpoon them.
Absolutely not. No, we're trying to get into the 21st century, and that is exactly what the third branch of our organization is, and that is our application for a World Whale Heritage Site. And it's a brand new concept, a year and a half old. And this concept is to try and create contemporary, responsible interactions between humans and cetaceans, particularly whales, but as I say, cetaceans are whales, dolphin, and porpoise. And Nantucket's the perfect shining example of that. Whale heritage sites take into account history. They take into account what our culture was built on. They take into account, do you still celebrate this in any fashion? We have a maritime festival. We have a world-class whaling museum. All of this stuff is part of the application criteria for a whale heritage site.
Who is the governing body that determines whether you're eligible or whether Nantucket's eligible?
That's the World Cetacean Alliance. And the World Cetacean Alliance is a group of about 90 organizations, and some of those are nonprofits, and some of those are for-profit, mostly whale-watching companies. So you've got companies in Iceland who may be operating on the same dock as a whaling boat that is going out to kill whales is operating from. And so there's political juxtaposition that's going on. And Whale Heritage Sites is trying to support that whale watching side of things to show that a blue economy is probably more valuable, and it has been proven. In fact, whale watching has brought in many, many more dollars than whale killing. And on Nantucket, we have a great whale watching industry. It's a one-man operation. Blair Perkins and his wife Rachel Perkins, but Shearwater Excursions goes out and they see whales that no one else is seeing east of Nantucket, south of the Cape. And so in that area, we fit the criteria perfectly. He follows responsible whale watching procedures as set down by the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and is an excellent naturalist on top of that. So I feel that with the history, the culture, the contemporary interaction with whale watching and responsible whale watching, we suit the criteria perfectly.
What does this mean? What's the impact of it?
Well, it would, it's probably layered. I would have to, my own personal priority is that we start treating these animals with the respect and dignity that they deserve. We had up to 20 whales swimming within 25 feet of our beach for 6 weeks last summer. We need to be able to educate people about what they should do when they're in the vicinity of a critically endangered North Atlantic right whale. We had boats that were breaking the law. We treated them with respect. The Coast Guard and the environmental police officers were out there, and I think a citation was given, but there were no, it was minor by comparison to what it could have been. And so we want to educate people. And if you become a whale heritage site...
Were they local boats, or were they...
They were local boats mostly, yeah. And now they know. So I'm confident that in the future we won't have that same issue. And that's my priority, this responsible interaction, people doing the right thing around these amazing
Why were the whales
mammals.
so close?
Oh.
This year? They haven't been in the past.
They haven't. This was, I've used the expression before, it was a living memory event. I do not know a person alive on this island that has ever seen this before. And I would dare say that it probably hasn't happened since whaling was a rowboat ride off the beach. And people went out and killed right whales because they floated quite easily. So your question, why were they here? The little picture is that all last winter long we had these southwesterly weather patterns, and so everything was blowing up from the south, and that included plankton, krill, copepods, the things that right whales eat, and the things that little fish eat. And humpback whales eat little fish. So everything came together. You saw the erosion along the south shore, particularly the southwest shore, and that was from the same weather patterns. So we're starting to get that again this year. I wouldn't be surprised if this winter continues as it is right now, where we're getting all of these southerlies, that we have whales here again next year. And then again, I reflect on whale heritage sites. We need to be able to utilize that, the education that provides, and the economy that provides. I mean, that could be an excellent opportunity for local businesses to have and contribute to a blue economy. A bigger picture is that we're currently dealing with opening of the East Coast to seismic testing, which is the most horrendous noise that you can create in the ocean. Subsequent to that, we will be drilling for oil if things go through. And there are 141 communities along the East Coast, municipalities, that have said we don't want drilling or seismic testing off of our town beaches. Nantucket should be one of those. And if we can create a whale heritage site here that contributes to a blue economy, that contributes to the local economy, then we have some leverage when we push back against...
Has an effort been made to get Nantucket to make such a declaration?
Yes, an effort is currently in process. And I'm not running it. I was involved in advising on it. But yes, it's ongoing right now.
Who's running that?
Annie Mendelson. Yeah, and she's got a letter being developed, and it's going to go to the Board of Selectmen and see if they got on board.
Does it have any impact?
It's non-binding. It's non-binding. But you know, isn't that what a lot of creating awareness and leverage is just getting something on paper and allowing people to read about it and get some information? And, you know, again, Nantucket is a role model community. A lot of people say that. I agree. If we can establish that position and base it on, and use a whale heritage site as part of that leverage, then I think that we have the opportunity to have an impact.
Have you gotten any pushback on this?
Not yet, no. In fact, we're getting a lot of very positive feedback. I did an interview with John Irvin on this station, and it got a lot of hits and a lot of really positive feedback.
Where do seals fit in this equation?
They don't. They don't. And I keep those two things separate. They fit in my equation, the Marine Mammal Alliance. Marine mammals include seals, of course. But as far as a whale heritage site, this is about cetaceans. This is about whales. It has nothing to do with seals.
Okay, because as you know, that's a very controversial issue.
It is, and I have a very strong position on it.
I'm
but
sure.
that's, yeah,
we'll leave that for another time.
Another time. Yeah.
Does this whale heritage site carry with it any sort of additional enforcement? I won't say authority, but I'll say opportunity in terms of dealing with people who are perhaps acting not in the best interests of cetaceans?
It's a good question, and I think that again, it's probably to begin with a non-binding overview. But as you start to develop an economy based around that, then they become reasons. I mean, to become a whale heritage site, there is of course a fee, and that's for administration costs, for use of to license a logo, the whale heritage site logo, to advertise. I mean, there's already been several international eco-travel magazines and travel magazines that have done articles on this developing whale heritage site option and project. So all of that costs a little bit of money. And I say a little bit, it's about $30,000. And that's a little bit of money if you can get partners together and organize it. And then you all of a sudden have the ability to advertise yourself as this whale heritage site. And shops can sell shirts that have the logo on it, the Nantucket Whale Heritage Site, and people will buy those. So there's a retail and economy process that goes on there, and that's the leverage. I think that you then get the opportunity to say, well, look, Nantucket's making such and such a sum from being a whale heritage site, a world whale heritage site. Now we don't want to lose that, because they will be doing audits every 3 years. Once you're designated as a site, then they audit you every 3 years to make sure that you're living up to that criteria. And at that stage, if you're developing an economy around that, and that economy is bringing in tens of thousands of dollars to your community, that creates reasons for town to say, hey, look, you know, hey, Coast Guard, hey, environmental police, could you go out there and just check on those boats, because, you know, hey, they're on top of a right whale. And that leverage, I think, is real.
Are there sites now in the world? Or
Nope,
is this
there
first?
isn't.
This is
We
the first?
could be the first. Yeah, there was actually Vancouver Island North in Canada was going to be the first World Whale Heritage Site. They had everything in line. They have great science that's up there. They have resident orcas as well as other whales, but they're famous for their North Vancouver Island orca pod.
Right.
And they were on the way, and then Canadian politics took over. And that was a situation where First Nations Canada, which is the native Canadian population, said, look, we need this from the Canadian government, so we won't sign off on that until you give us this. And that's probably putting it a year down the line. There are 2 other sites right now that are at least as far along as us. That's Hervey Bay, Australia, and I can't think of the other one offhand right now. But you know, they're right along in the process. They're looking at becoming whale heritage sites, looking at it for the same reasons that we are, but maybe with different leverage. They have more whales and more whale watching, so they're looking at this responsible whale watching. We have the history. I mean, in fact, the World Cetacean Alliance said, hey, gosh, you guys have the history. When I was in the Azores at the Whale Heritage Site conference, the Azorean government official, Portuguese government official, mentioned Nantucket in the first 3 minutes of his keynote speech. And so yeah, it's our history that really is significant.
As a counterpoint to this, where is whaling still done commercially?
Commercially, 3 big places: Norway, Iceland, and then the infamous Japanese whaling. And that is still done. I can't think of a good reason for it. I can think of reasons for it, and they talk about culture, and that's sure, it was part of our culture too. Japan calls it scientific whaling. The International Court of Justice said it isn't. Japan said, well, we're going to change the name basically and do it anyhow, and we don't care what you say. And of course, you know, the International Whaling Commission and the International Court of Justice really don't have they don't have any enforcement. You know, yeah.
Are there groups like Greenpeace and so forth still working out there to get them to stop, or is that pretty much gone by the board?
The big, you're probably referring to the very infamous TV show that went on and was well recorded, Whale Wars, and that was Sea Shepherd. And Sea Shepherd pulled out of the Antarctic this year. And they did that because Japan is using their military technology to locate Sea Shepherd ships and hide their ships from Sea Shepherd. So they can, Sea Shepherd can't go down and find the Japanese in the Southern Ocean. So yeah, it's a tricky situation. I'm sure they will continue to. The bottom line is protein. I mean, they don't want to stop whaling because they don't want to be told they have to stop anything else.
It's really a different basis for it than it was in the 19th century, right?
Yes, yeah.
It's now ostensibly for food and that sort of thing rather than for the oil.
Correct. And while a very tiny % of the Japanese eat whale, as I say, it's that concern about the next step. Okay, so we can't take whales. What about marlin? What about tuna? And they get most of their protein from the ocean.
Right.
I think you should be able to separate those things out. And actually, I think that if the ocean ecosystem continues to collapse.
Hang on just a minute.
Yeah. we'll cut that out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I just have one more question.
Okay.
If this comes through at the end of the year or January sometime, what are you going to do to sort of launch it?
Well, by the end of the year, we're talking about the stranding agreement. I think that the stranding agreement, which is a separate issue, I think that will be something that as soon as that comes through, we'll get our guys retrained. We'll have the International Fund for Animal Welfare out here and train our folks up and start acting. As far as the Whale Heritage side is concerned, I'm looking at trying to raise that approximately $30,000 to get it in place. And if anyone is interested, you just need to go to Marine Mammal Alliance Nantucket, and we've got a donate button. I'm going to do the What Is Facebook has the Gift Giving Tuesday coming up, and you know I'm going to try and raise these funds. We're talking with partners here on island, including Mariah Mitchell, the NHA, and trying to give the same information, sell the same message to them. It's not a money thing for me. It's about the principle of creating a heritage site that protects the animals that live here. And we can now say that live here because there were 20 of them here last year. In fact, that event ended, I don't know if folks realize, it was the 50th mortality in an ongoing unusual mortality event. We had a little girl humpback wash up on the beach at Madikasham. And we don't know why these whales are dying. And it's up to 53 now. And we also have the North Atlantic right whale. We've had 16 or 17 mortalities that we know of in the last 6 months. And this is a population that is crashing. There's just an article out in The Guardian in England today that, you know, they're concerned about extinction. And there may be 100 breeding females left. And by 2030, which isn't very long, folks, gosh, by 2030 it may be down to about 30 breeding females. and then the animal is pretty much done. Yeah.
Scott, thank you for your good work and good luck.
All right, Dan.
Scott
Thank
Leonard,
you very much.
You're welcome.
All right.